My mother looked at me with tears in her eyes and said, "Emma, after 20 years, don't you think it's time to forgive us? We deserve to know our grandson." I stared at the two people who had thrown me out at 15 years old with nowhere to go. They stood in my doorway like they had every right to be there. Like they hadn't missed every single important moment of my life for 2 decades. Then my 19-year-old son Ethan stepped into the room and quietly said 8 words that made both of them turn pale. "Tell them why they are really here, Mom." And just like that, 20 years of silence finally made sense. But I need to start at the beginning. Because if you're going to understand why those words shattered my parents, you need to know who I was before everything fell apart. My name is Emma Carter. I'm 35 years old, I live in Texas, and I'm a registered nurse. But that's not who I always was. Once upon a time, I was just a girl trying to survive in a house where love was conditional, and I was never quite good enough. Growing up, we were the picture-perfect family. At least, that's what we looked like to everyone else. We lived in a nice house in a quiet neighborhood. My father, Richard Carter, was a deacon at our church. My mother, Linda Carter, ran the women's ministry. We went to service every Sunday, Wednesday night Bible study, and every single church potluck. We smiled in our family photos. We said grace before meals. We were what everyone called good Christian people. But behind closed doors, it was a different story. I had an older sister named Jessica. Jessica was the golden child. And I don't say that with jealousy. I say it as a simple fact. Jessica was 2 years older than me, and she could do absolutely no wrong in my parents' eyes. She got straight A's without trying. She was pretty and popular and played the piano beautifully. She wore the right clothes and said the right things, and made my parents look like they'd done everything right. And then there was me. I was quieter. More observant. I didn't fit into the perfect little box my parents had built. I wasn't bad, exactly. I just wasn't Jessica. And in my house, not being Jessica meant you were invisible at best and a disappointment at worst. I remember this one time, when I was about 11 years old. I had won a spelling bee at school. Not a big deal, but I was proud of myself. I came home with my certificate, practically bouncing off the walls. My mom was in the kitchen making dinner. I held up the certificate and said, "Mom, look. I won." She glanced at it for maybe half a second. "That's nice, honey. Can you set the table? Your father will be home soon." That was it. That was the reaction. No hug. No celebration. No, "I'm so proud of you." Just set the table. Meanwhile, when Jessica got an A on a test, my parents would take her out for ice cream. When she made the honor roll, they bought her a new dress. When she did literally anything, they celebrated like she'd discovered a cure for cancer. I learned early that my achievements didn't matter. I learned that my existence was just tolerated. I was the backup child. The one they had to feed and clothe and pretend to care about, but never actually invest in. My parents were strict about everything. What I wore. Who I talked to. What I watched on TV. How I spoke. How I laughed. I had to be quiet, polite, and invisible. I had to be perfect. And if I wasn't perfect, well, I was punished. Not physically, not really. But emotionally. Absolutely. I remember my father telling me once, "Emma, you need to be more like your sister. She understands how to make this family look good." That was the message, over and over again. It wasn't about being good. It was about looking good. It was about appearances. It was about making sure the neighbors and the church members and everyone else thought we were the perfect Christian family. And I just couldn't do it. I couldn't be Jessica. I couldn't pretend to be something I wasn't. I tried, believe me. I tried so hard. But the harder I tried, the more I failed. And the more I failed, the more my parents pulled away from me. By the time I was 15, I had pretty much accepted my role in the family. I was the disappointing one. The one who would never quite measure up. The one who was just there. And then I fell in love. His name was Noah. Noah was a year older than me. He worked part-time at a garage, fixing cars, and he had this smile that could make your heart stop. He was kind and funny, and he made me feel like I actually mattered. Like I was seen. Like I was someone worth loving. We met through mutual friends, and from the moment we started talking, I felt something I'd never felt before. Safety. With Noah, I didn't have to pretend. I didn't have to be perfect. I could just be me. My parents hated him, of course. They said he was beneath me. They said his family was trash. They said he would drag me down. I remember my mother literally sneering when I told her I was seeing him. That boy. Emma, you can do better. He's not good enough for this family. But Noah was good enough for me. He was more than good enough. He was everything. We started dating, and for the first time in my life, I felt happy. Really and truly happy. Noah made me laugh. He made me feel beautiful. He made me feel like I had a future worth wanting. I wasn't trying to get pregnant. I wasn't trying to rebel, or ruin my parents' reputation, or make some kind of statement. I was just a stupid teenager in love, and I made a stupid teenager mistake. One night. That's all it took. One night of poor decisions, and my entire life changed forever. I figured out I was pregnant about 2 months in. I was scared. Terrified doesn't even begin to cover it. I remember staring at that positive pregnancy test in the bathroom of a gas station, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold it. I sat on the floor and cried for an hour. Then I went home and pretended nothing was wrong for 2 more weeks. But eventually, I had to tell someone. And I thought, against everything I knew, that my parents would help me. They were my parents. They were supposed to love me unconditionally. That's what parents do, right? They love their children no matter what. I was so naive. I told my mother first. I found her in the kitchen, alone. I remember exactly what she was wearing. A blue floral dress with a white apron. She was chopping vegetables for dinner. The knife made this rhythmic sound against the cutting board. I stood in the doorway for a long time, just watching her, trying to find the courage. Mom? My voice came out weak and shaky. She didn't turn around. What is it, Emma? I'm busy. Mom, I need to tell you something. She sighed and put down the knife. What? And I said it. I'm pregnant. The silence that followed was the loudest thing I've ever heard. The kitchen was completely quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the clock on the wall. My mother stared at me with her mouth half open. Her face went pale, then red, then pale again. What did you say? I said I'm pregnant. You're joking. I'm not joking. You're a child. You're 15 years old. You can't be pregnant. That's impossible. I'm pregnant, Mom. I took a test. It was positive. And then my mother did something I will never forget. She slapped me across the face. Hard. So hard that I stumbled backward and nearly fell. She had never hit me before. Never. But that day, she hit me like I was a stranger. Like I was nothing. Get your father, she said through clenched teeth. Right now. I went upstairs to my father's study with my cheek stinging and tears streaming down my face. I told him I needed to talk to him. He was surprised to see me crying, but he didn't look concerned. He just looked annoyed, like I was interrupting something important. I told him I was pregnant too. And I watched his face transform from annoyance to something darker. Something I still can't fully describe. He didn't hit me, but I almost wish he had. Instead, he just looked at me with pure contempt and said, "You are dead to us." 4 words. That was all it took to end my childhood. They both came downstairs, and the screaming began. My mother was hysterical, crying and shouting about how I'd ruined everything. How I'd shamed the family. How the church would find out. How everyone would know what kind of daughter they'd raised. My father was colder. Calmer. But somehow that was worse. He told me I was a disgrace. He told me I was going to hell. He told me I had made my choices, and I would have to live with the consequences. I begged them to help me. I begged them to please just listen. I said I was scared and I needed them. I said I was still their daughter. I said I was sorry. But they didn't care. "You're not our daughter anymore," my father said. "Not after this. You've made your choice. Now leave." Leave? Where am I supposed to go? That's not our problem anymore. My mother stopped crying long enough to look at me with this cold, dead expression. "You should have thought about that before you spread your legs for that trash. You brought this on yourself, Emma. You and your sin." I tried to grab my mother's arm. I was desperate. I was so young and so scared, and I just wanted my mother to hold me and tell me everything was going to be okay. But she pulled away like I had burned her. "Don't touch me," she said. "You're disgusting." Then she went to my room, threw a bunch of clothes into a backpack, and literally pushed me out the front door. My father stood behind her, his arms crossed, his face like stone. The door slammed in my face. I stood on the porch with my backpack, sobbing. The neighbors across the street were outside, and they had definitely seen everything. I watched them whisper to each other, their faces full of pity and judgment. I had nowhere to go. No car. No money. No phone. Nothing but a backpack full of clothes and a baby growing inside me. And the door behind me stayed locked. I walked for hours. I had no idea where I was going. I just kept putting one foot in front of the other, crying so hard I couldn't breathe. The sun went down and it got cold, and I was just wandering through a world that suddenly didn't want me anymore. Eventually, I ended up at Noah's house. I knocked on his door at midnight, and he opened it looking half asleep. Then he saw my face and he was awake in an instant. "Emma? What happened? What's wrong?" I told them, I said. "They threw me out." He pulled me into his arms and held me while I sobbed. His grandmother, Grace, came downstairs to see what was going on. Noah explained everything to her, and she didn't hesitate for a second. She told me I was staying with them. She told me she'd take care of me. "You're family now," she said. "Don't you ever forget that." Grace was the grandmother I never had. She was warm and loving, and she never once made me feel like I was a burden. She was a tiny woman in her 70s with silver hair and the kindest eyes I've ever seen. She lived in a small house with a big garden, and she made the best chicken soup in the world. She let me sleep in Noah's room, on a cot she set up in the corner. She made sure I ate. She took me to my doctor's appointments. She held my hand when I cried. She told me everything was going to be okay, and for the first time in my life, I actually believed someone. Noah was amazing. He was only 16, but he stepped up in ways that would make most grown men blush. He got a second job working construction. He'd wake up at 4 a.m. to go work a shift at the garage, then go to school, then work construction until midnight. He was exhausted all the time, but he never complained. "I'm going to take care of you," he told me. "And our baby. I promise." And he did. He really did. I had to drop out of school. There was no way I could keep going. I was sick all the time, and I was working, and I just couldn't handle it. I got a job at a diner, waiting tables. The pay was terrible and the hours were worse, but I didn't complain. I was just grateful to have something. I remember those days so vividly. The exhaustion was bone deep. I'd work a double shift at the diner, come home, do homework for the GED classes I was taking, and sleep maybe 4 hours before doing it all over again. I was so tired that sometimes I'd fall asleep standing up. I'd be in the middle of taking someone's order, and suddenly everything would go fuzzy, and I'd have to shake myself awake. Noah was just as exhausted. We'd collapse into bed at night, holding each other, too tired to even talk. But we were together. We had each other. And we had Grace. Ethan was born on a cold December morning. I was 16 years old. The labor was brutal, and I was scared to death. But when they put that little boy in my arms, everything changed. All the fear and pain and exhaustion just melted away. I looked at this tiny, perfect little person, and I knew I would do anything for him. Absolutely anything. Ethan had Noah's smile from day one. And those eyes. These big, beautiful eyes that just looked at me with so much trust. He was so small and so helpless, and I promised him right then that I would never let him down. I would never abandon him the way my parents had abandoned me. Grace helped me raise him. She taught me how to change diapers and how to soothe colic and how to make homemade baby food. She would take him for the night so I could sleep. She told me stories about raising Noah's father, who had died when Noah was just a little boy. She treated Ethan like he was the most precious thing in the world. "You're doing a good job, sweetheart," she'd tell me when I was overwhelmed. "Look at that beautiful boy. He's happy. He's healthy. That's all that matters." The years passed. Noah and I stayed together. We couldn't afford to get married, not really, but in our hearts we were husband and wife. We were partners in every way that counted. We had our struggles, of course we did. Money was always tight. There were times we couldn't afford groceries. Times when we had to choose between paying the electric bill and buying diapers. Times when I cried in the shower because I didn't know how we were going to make it. But we always made it. We always figured it out. We had to. We had Ethan. Noah became a mechanic. A real one, with a proper job at a proper garage. He was good at it too. Really good. People would come from all over town to have him work on their cars. He had a gift for fixing things. He could take something broken and make it work again, and he always said that's what he wanted to do for his family. "We are going to be okay," he'd tell me. "I'm going to give you everything you deserve." And I believed him. I believed we were going to make it. I got my GED. Then I started taking community college classes. Noah's grandmother Grace offered to watch Ethan more during the day so I could go to school. She was older by then, getting a little slower, but she still had that fire in her. She loved that little boy more than anything. I started the nursing program. It was hard. So hard. I was working part-time at the hospital as a CNA, going to school full-time, and being a mom. I barely slept. I barely ate. But I was determined. I was going to make something of myself. I was going to give Ethan a better life than I had. And Noah was right there beside me, cheering me on every step of the way. We were finally building something together. Something real. Something we could be proud of. And then it all fell apart, Ethan was 6 years old when Noah died. It was a Tuesday. A completely ordinary Tuesday. Noah had gone to work that morning like he always did. He kissed me goodbye. He said he'd be home for dinner. He said he loved me. And then he never came home. There was an accident on the highway. A drunk driver crossed the median and hit Noah's car head-on. The driver survived. Noah didn't. The police came to our house that evening. I remember seeing their car pull into the driveway, and I just knew. I don't know how I knew, but I did. Something in my soul just told me that my world was about to end. The officers were so kind. They told me there was an accident. They told me Noah had been taken to the hospital. They didn't say he was dead, but I could see it in their eyes. I left Ethan with Grace and ran to the hospital. I ran faster than I've ever run before in my life. I was screaming, I think. I don't really remember. I just remember running, feeling like my heart was going to explode out of my chest. When I got to the hospital, they told me Noah had died on impact. He didn't suffer, they said. It was quick and painless. They said that like it was supposed to make me feel better. It didn't. I collapsed in the waiting room. I screamed. I sobbed. I couldn't breathe. The world just stopped spinning. Everything went grey and silent and I couldn't do anything but cry. Noah was gone. My Noah. The boy who had loved me when no one else did. The boy who had worked himself to the bone to take care of me and our son. The boy who had promised me forever. And forever had been cut short. Ethan was too young to understand death. When I came home and told him his daddy wasn't coming back, he just looked at me with those big eyes and asked, "Is Daddy in heaven now?" "Yes," I said. "Dad is in heaven." "Can I still talk to him?" "Yes, baby. You can always talk to him. He'll hear you." And Ethan nodded, like that made perfect sense. Then he went back to playing with his toys. He was too young to grieve the way I was grieving. Too young to understand that his whole life had just changed forever. I didn't sleep for weeks after Noah died. I would lie in our bed, the bed we had shared, and just stare at the ceiling. I couldn't move. I couldn't eat. I couldn't do anything. The pain was so intense, so overwhelming, that I didn't think I could survive it. Grace held me together. She was the one who made sure I ate. She was the one who took Ethan to school. She was the one who kept the house running when I couldn't get out of bed. "You have to be strong for Ethan," she would tell me. "You can't fall apart, sweetheart. You have a little boy who needs you." And she was right. I did have a little boy who needed me. I couldn't just give up. I couldn't leave Ethan alone in this world. So I got up. I got out of bed. I went back to work. I went back to school. I did everything I was supposed to do, even though every single second felt like a chore. The hospital bills were astronomical. Noah didn't have life insurance, because life insurance costs money we didn't have. I had to figure out how to pay for the funeral. I had to figure out how to keep our house. I had to figure out how to survive without the love of my life. I worked 3 jobs. I'd go to school during the day, then work a shift at the hospital, then work a shift at a diner, then come home and collapse. I couldn't hire a babysitter, so Grace would watch Ethan while I worked. She was getting older, and I could see the strain it was putting on her. But she never complained. She never said a word. "What happened to your husband?" people would ask me. "He died," I'd say. And they'd look away, embarrassed they'd asked. I'd go home at night and cry in the shower. I'd cry so hard I couldn't breathe. I'd scream into a pillow so Ethan wouldn't hear me. I'd beg God to take me too. I'd promised to be a better person if he'd just bring Noah back. But Noah never came back. And I had to accept that. I remember Ethan, maybe a year after Noah died, coming to me in the middle of the night. He was crying. He had been dreaming about his daddy. "Mom, can you tell me a story about Daddy?" And I told him. I told him about how Noah and I had met. I told him about the first time Noah made me laugh. I told him about the night Ethan was born and how Noah had held him and cried tears of joy. "Your daddy loved you so much, Ethan. More than anything in the world. Did Daddy love you too?" "Yes, baby. Daddy loved me so much." "Then why did he go away?" I couldn't answer that. I just held my son and cried. Through all of this, my parents never reached out. Not once. They knew Noah died. They had to know. Our small town, everyone knows everyone's business. Someone must have told them. But they never called. Never sent a card. Never showed up at the funeral. I don't know what I expected. Maybe nothing. But a part of me, the stupid part that still wanted to believe my parents loved me, hoped they would come. Hoped they would finally see what I'd been through and feel some regret. They didn't. 20 years of silence. That's what they gave me. 20 years of not a single phone call, not a single birthday card, not a single Christmas present for their grandson. 20 years of acting like I didn't exist. Meanwhile, Jessica got everything. Jessica went to college. My parents paid for every penny. She had a beautiful wedding, and they paid for that too. They gave her the down payment on her house. They bought her cars. They gave her everything they had, while I was working 3 jobs just to survive. I saw it all on social media. I knew I shouldn't have looked, but I couldn't help myself. I would see pictures of Jessica's perfect life and cry. I'd see my mother posting comments about how proud she was of her beautiful daughter, and I'd want to scream. What about me? What about your other daughter? What about your grandson? But I never reached out. I wanted them to come to me. I wanted them to admit they were wrong. I wanted them to apologize. And I waited and waited, and the apology never came. It's funny how time works. When you're in the middle of something terrible, it feels like it will last forever. But then you wake up one day and 20 years have passed, and you barely recognize the person you used to be. I made a life for myself. It wasn't easy, but I did it. I finished nursing school. I got my RN license. I started working at a hospital, and eventually I worked my way up to a good position. I bought a house. A nice one. Not huge, but comfortable. Safe. Ethan grew up. He turned into the most incredible young man. He was smart and kind and handsome. He had his father's smile and his father's eyes. Every time I looked at him, I saw Noah. He got a scholarship to college. He studied pre-med. He wanted to be a doctor. A pediatric Ian, specifically. He wanted to help kids like his mother helped people. He wanted to make a difference. I was so proud of him. So incredibly proud. He didn't know about my parents. Not really. I had told him the basic facts, that my family and I had a falling out, that they wanted nothing to do with me. But I never went into details. I never told him about being thrown out. About the abuse. About the 20 years of neglect. I wanted to protect him. I wanted him to have a normal childhood, even if it meant carrying the weight of my trauma by myself. But secrets don't stay buried forever. It was a Saturday afternoon. I was off work, and Ethan was home from college for the weekend. We were in the kitchen, making lunch. Sandwiches. Simple stuff. We were talking about his classes, his girlfriend, his plans for the future. It was one of those perfect ordinary moments. The kind you don't realize you'll remember until you're looking back on them. Then the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I wiped my hands on a towel and went to answer it. Ethan followed, because that's just what he did. He always wanted to know who was at the door. I opened the door, and my entire world tilted on its axis. It was them. Linda and Richard Carter. My parents. Standing on my doorstep like they had every right to be there. They were older now. Grayer. More wrinkled. But I recognized them instantly. 20 years hadn't been enough to forget their faces. My mother was crying. Actually crying. Tears streaming down her face. My father looked emotional too, which was something I'd never seen before. Emma, my mother said. Her voice was choked with tears. My baby. My sweet baby. She reached out to touch my face, and I flinched. I stepped backward. I couldn't help it. Every instinct in my body was screaming at me to run, to hide, to protect myself from these people who had hurt me so much. Mom? Ethan's voice came from behind me. Who are they? I couldn't speak. I just stood there, frozen, staring at the two people who had abandoned me. My mother looked at Ethan and gasped. Is that him? Is that our grandson? She was smiling. She was actually smiling like she had any right to be happy. Emma, after 20 years, don't you think it's time to forgive us? We deserve to know our grandson. I stared at them. The words wouldn't come. And then Ethan stepped into the room. He looked at my parents with a calm expression that I'd never seen before. Tell them why they are really here, Mom. My parents' faces went pale. The room went silent. What do you mean? My mother asked. What are you talking about? Ethan just looked at them with cold, flat eyes. You didn't come here to see Mom. You came here because you need something. Don't you? My mother's mouth opened and closed like a fish. My father stared at the floor. Neither of them said a word. And that's when I knew. That's when everything clicked into place. 20 years of silence, and suddenly they were here, on my doorstep, acting like they loved me. They needed something from us. The question was what? I invited them in. I don't know why. Maybe some part of me still wanted to believe they had changed. Maybe some part of me still wanted my parents back. But I think really, I just wanted to know the truth. We sat in my living room. My parents sat on my couch. Ethan sat next to me, his body tense, his jaw tight. I could tell he was watching them, reading them, analyzing them. That's what he did. He was observant, like me. He could sense when people were lying. Talk, I said. Tell me why you're really here. My mother started crying again. We came because we love you, Emma. We've missed you so much. All these years. Stop it, I said. My voice was harder than I expected it to be. Stop pretending. You didn't come here for me. You haven't spoken to me in 20 years. 20 years. Not a phone call, not a card, not a message. And now suddenly you're here, crying about how much you missed me. I'm not stupid. My father finally spoke. Emma, please. You're right. We haven't been good parents. We know that. But we are here now. Isn't that what matters? No. It's not. What matters is why you're here. What do you want? Silence. Then my mother broke down completely. Not the fake tears from the porch. Real ones. Ugly ones. Your sister is sick, Emma. Jessica. Her son needs a kidney transplant. He's only 8 years old. He's going to die if he doesn't get a donor. The room started spinning. Your sister. I couldn't even finish the sentence. The doctors say he needs a kidney, my father continued. He was born with a condition, and it's getting worse. He's on dialysis. He's so sick, Emma. He's just a little boy. And you need a donor, Ethan said quietly. His voice was calm, but I could hear the anger underneath. My mother nodded. We've been searching. We've been tested. No one in the family is a match. Except. She looked at Ethan. And everything suddenly made sense. Except Ethan, I said. My voice was hollow. You want Ethan's kidney. My parents looked at each other. Then my father said, his family. He's Jessica's nephew. And the doctors said he's a match. A perfect match. He could save his cousin's life. I stood up. You have to be joking. Emma, please. You threw me out of your house when I was 15. You told me I was dead to you. You never called, never wrote, never even acknowledged that Ethan existed. And now you want him to donate his kidney to your precious daughter's son. Please, Emma, my mother begged. He's just a little boy. He's innocent. He doesn't deserve to die because of what happened between us. Jessica has a son. Yes. His name is Michael. He's 8 years old. Please, Emma. I know we failed you. I know we were terrible parents. But please don't punish a child for our mistakes. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. All the pain I'd buried for 20 years was suddenly rushing back. I'm going to give you a list of who in your family is the real disgrace, I said. And it's not me. It was never me. My mother started crying harder. My father just sat there with his head in his hands. Ethan stood up. He looked at my parents, and for a moment, I saw something in his eyes. Not anger. Not disgust. Something else. Something I couldn't quite read. You want my kidney, he said. Please, my mother begged. Please, Ethan. Your cousin is going to die. Ethan looked at me. There was a question in his eyes. A question I didn't know how to answer. I need to think about this, he said. I'll give you an answer tomorrow. He walked out of the room. And I was left alone with my parents. That night, I couldn't sleep. I just lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything. About Jessica. About her son. About Ethan. He was a healthy young man. He could survive with one kidney. It was a safe procedure. People did it all the time. But the principle of it. The sheer audacity. My parents had ignored me for 20 years. 20 years. And now they wanted something from my son. My son who they had never acknowledged. Would Ethan even want to do it? He didn't know these people. They were strangers to him. Did he owe them anything just because they shared blood? I didn't know the answer. I must have eventually fallen asleep, because I woke up in the middle of the night. Something had woken me. A noise. Someone was in the kitchen. I crept out of my room and made my way down the hall. The lights were on in the kitchen. And I could hear voices. My parents. They had stayed the night in my spare room. They were in the kitchen, talking in hushed voices. Once he donates, we won't have to keep pretending, my mother said. I froze. Linda, lower your voice, my father said. The walls are thin. I'm just saying the truth. We don't actually have to maintain a relationship with them. Once Ethan gives the kidney, we are done. We can go back to our lives. Jessica will have her son. And we'll never have to see Emma again. Does Jessica know what we are doing? My father asked. She's desperate. She'll agree to anything. She doesn't care how we get the kidney. She just wants Michael to live. But if Emma finds out, she won't. We'll be careful. We'll play the doting grandparents for a few months. Then we can conveniently drift away again. It's not like we have a real connection with them anyway. I stood in the hallway, my heart pounding. I felt sick. So sick. They were using me. They were using my son. They were playing a game, pretending to want a relationship, just to get what they wanted. And then I saw Ethan. He was standing in the doorway of his room. He had heard everything. His face was pale. His eyes were empty. "Mom," he whispered. "Did you hear that?" I nodded. "I thought they wanted to know me," he said. "I thought they actually cared. But they don't. They just want my kidney. I'm just a tool to them. I'm nothing." And he walked back into his room and closed the door. The next morning, my parents came to the breakfast table wearing these fake, friendly smiles. My mother made coffee. My father read the newspaper. They were both pretending like nothing had happened. "Good morning, Emma," my mother said cheerfully. "How did you sleep?" "Fine," I said. "And you?" "Wonderful. It's so lovely being here with you. Being a family again." I almost laughed. Almost. Ethan came into the kitchen looking tired and hollow. He didn't look at my parents. He just sat down and started eating breakfast like nothing was wrong. "Ethan," my mother said. "We were wondering if you've had time to think about our request. You know, about Michael. It would mean so much to us." Ethan looked up. And for the first time since I'd known him, I saw real anger in his eyes. "I've done some thinking," he said. "And I'd like to talk to you both. And to Jessica." My mother looked confused. "Jessica? She should be here for this," Ethan said. "This is about her son. She should hear what I have to say." Within a few hours, Jessica arrived. She looked terrible. Thin and haggard, with dark circles under her eyes. She was obviously stressed. Obviously desperate. "I've heard so much about you," she said to me, trying to smile. "I'm sorry it took this long to meet." "Really?" I said. "Because I haven't heard anything about you. Not from your parents. Not from anyone. But I know everything about you. I know what your life has been like. I know you needed a down payment on your house and your parents gave it to you. I know you got your wedding paid for. I know your parents bought you cars and paid for your college. I know all of it. You know what I had? Nothing. I had nothing. My son had nothing. And you never reached out. None of you did. Not once." Jessica looked away. "I can't change the past," she said. "But I can't let my son die either." "Michael is dying," my mother added. "You can save him." "I can save him." Ethan said. "I can save your grandson." They all turned to look at him. And then my son stood up. He looked at each of them. At my mother. At my father. At Jessica. Then he started talking. "Where was family when my mom was sleeping in cars? Where was family when my dad died? Where were you for 19 birthdays? Where were you when mom worked 3 jobs and got home at 2 a.m., and still got up at 5 a.m. to make sure I had breakfast?" Silence. "You didn't come here because you love mom," Ethan continued. "You didn't come here because you want a relationship. You came here because you need something. You want my kidney. That's the only reason you're here. And I know because I heard you talking last night. My mother's face went white. My father looked like he was going to be sick. Once he donates, we won't have to keep pretending, Ethan repeated. Those were your exact words. You're not here to be grandparents. You're here to use me. Ethan, please, Jessica started. Don't, he said. Don't even try. I'm not going to give you my kidney. Not now. Not ever. Not under manipulation. I will only help when I feel genuine love, not guilt. Jessica burst into tears. My mother stood up. How dare you? How dare you talk to your family like that? Family? Ethan laughed. You're not my family. You're strangers. You're strangers who showed up after 20 years because you want something from me. You want my kidney. That's not love. That's not family. That's manipulation. What about Michael? Jessica sobbed. He's just a little boy. He didn't do anything to you. I'm sorry about your son, Ethan said. I truly am. But I'm not going to let his family manipulate me into giving up my organ. If you were good people, if you had actually been there for my mom, I would have said yes without hesitation. But you weren't. You abandoned her. And now you expect me to save your child. No. My father stood up. You're selfish. You would let a child die. No, Ethan said. You're the ones who would let a child die. You had 20 years to reach out. To apologize. To try to be a family. But you didn't want a family. You wanted something. And that's why I'm saying no. Not because I don't care about your grandson, but because your love has always come with conditions. Complete silence. I looked at my parents. At Jessica. At their desperate faces. And I felt nothing. My parents left. They drove away in a hurry, and I never saw them again that day. Jessica followed them. They didn't even say goodbye. The house was quiet. Still. Empty. Ethan was in his room, processing what he had just done. I could hear his heart breaking from across the house. But I had news. Something I had kept to myself for years. Noah's grandmother Grace. She had died 2 years ago. She was 94 years old. She had lived a full life. A good life. And when she passed away, she left me something. Something I never told anyone about. Grace had been a very smart woman. She had invested her money well over her lifetime. She had a stock portfolio that had grown enormously over the decades. And she left it to me. The only one who had taken care of her in her final years. I inherited millions of dollars. Millions. I had paid off my debts. I had put money aside for Ethan's college. I had invested the rest, and was living modestly off the interest. My parents didn't know. Jessica didn't know. No one knew. I called Jessica the next day. She picked up on the first ring. You need to stop crying and listen to me, I said. I will pay for Michael's medical treatment. I will make sure he gets the best care possible. I will donate money to research. I will do everything in my power to make sure that little boy survives. What? She said. Why would you do that? Because I'm not a monster, I said. But you need to understand something. Your parents destroyed me. They threw me out when I was 15 and pregnant and scared. They didn't help. They didn't support me. They didn't care. I know, she said. I know they did. And I hated them for it. But I didn't reach out either because you were in their orbit, I said. I get it. I do. But now I'm giving you a chance. A chance to be the person your parents never were. A chance to do the right thing. I don't want your money, she said. Take the money, I told her. I don't need it. I don't need to be richer. I just need to know that I'm a decent person. And this is the right thing to do. It's the only thing to do. For Michael. A few weeks later, my parents called me. They wanted to see me alone. We met at a quiet restaurant. It was just the three of us. No Jessica. No Ethan. Just us. My mother was the first to speak. I was terrible to you, Emma. I was cruel. I was the worst mother in the history of the world. Yes, I said. You were. There's not a single day that went by when I didn't think about you, she said. Every birthday. Every Christmas. Every time something happened in your life, I wondered about you. But I was too proud to reach out. I was too ashamed. That's not love, I said. That's not what you call love. I know, she said. I know that now. 20 years, I said. 20 years of silence. 20 years of ignoring your only grandson. 20 years of pretending I didn't exist. You never reached out to me. Not even to apologize. I know, she repeated. And now you expect me to forgive you. Just like that. No, my father said. We don't expect anything. We know we don't deserve your forgiveness. We know we don't deserve your kindness. But we hope that one day you might be able to see us as human beings. Even if you don't love us, even if you can't love us, we hope you can find it in your heart not to hate us. I looked at them. My parents. The people who had hurt me more than anyone else in the world. I'm not going to pretend that everything is fine, I said. It's not. It's never going to be. You made choices that hurt me and my son, and I will never forget what you did to me. I will never forget that you threw me out on the streets when I was 15 and pregnant. I know, my mother said. She was crying again. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I'm sorry, Emma. I'm so sorry. I've been sorry for 20 years. I just never knew how to tell you. Words aren't enough, I said. Words never have been. If you want to make things right, you have to actually do the work. You have to understand why you were wrong. You have to show me that you've changed. Not with cheap words. With actions. My father was crying too. Tears streaming down his weathered, tired face. I failed you, Emma, he said. I failed you as a father. I was too hard on you. I was too strict. I placed my own beliefs and expectations above your well-being. And I've regretted it every single day. You said I was dead to you, I said. You said those words. And I never forgot them. I never forgot how you looked at me with such contempt. Like I was nothing. Like I didn't deserve to be loved. I didn't mean it, he said. I was angry. I was so afraid of what people would think of me. There's no excuse, I said. There's absolutely no excuse. I know, he said. And I'll live with that for the rest of my life. But I'd like to be better. I'd like to show you that I can be better. If you'll let me. I took a deep breath. I'm not going to pretend that everything is fine, I said. It's not. It's never going to be. But maybe we can try to be better. Maybe we can try to move forward. Not for me. Not for you. But for Ethan. And for Michael. They nodded. Thank you, my mother whispered. Don't thank me yet, I said. I'm not forgiving you. I'm not even sure I ever can. But I'm willing to try. I'm willing to see if you can earn my trust back. Months passed. My parents didn't disappear. They didn't drift away conveniently. They showed up. They called. They texted. They asked about Ethan. They asked about his studies. They asked about his life. They made an effort. It was small. It was clumsy. It was awkward. But it was something. Ethan stayed distant. He couldn't forget what he had overheard. He couldn't forget that his grandparents had only come back because they wanted something from him. He was cautious. Guarded. But he was also curious. One day, I found him standing in front of a graveyard. It was his great-grandmother's grave. "Hi, Great-Grandma Grace," he said quietly. "I know I don't come here often enough. But I think about you all the time. I think about what you taught me. About kindness. About family. About love." He paused. "Mom's parents came back, Great-Grandma. They came back because they needed something. My kidney. It was all so fake. All so manipulative. Mom is trying to forgive them. She's better than me. She's always been better than me." He smiled sadly. "You were the only grandparent I ever needed. You were there for Mom when her parents weren't. You were there for me. You taught me what family really means. And I want you to know that I'm grateful. I'm so grateful for everything you did." I watched my son from a distance. Noah's face. Noah's smile. Noah's kind, gentle soul. He was so much better than me. So much stronger. So much more forgiving. I walked to him and put my hand on his shoulder. "I miss her too," I said. "She was the best," he said. "The absolute best. She really was." Ethan looked at me. "You think my dad's up there with her?" "I think so," I said. "I think he's up there with her. And I think they are both watching over us." He nodded. "Hey, Mom," he said. "Thanks for being there. For always being there." "Always," I said. "I will always be there for you." We drove home in silence. Not an awkward silence. A comfortable one. The kind that comes with being truly known. When we got home, I checked my phone. There was a message from Jessica. "He's getting better," she said. "The doctors say the new treatment is working. They think he'll be able to live a full life. Thank you. Thank you for helping. Thank you for showing me what family really means." I smiled. I had lost so much in my life. My childhood. My innocence. The love of my life. My family. But I had gained so much too. A son who loved me unconditionally. A purpose. A new family that I had built with my own hands. And now, maybe, just maybe, I could be part of my old family again. Not because they needed me. But because they wanted me. Because they were finally ready to love me the way I deserved to be loved. Sometimes the people who abandon you become strangers. And sometimes strangers become the family that saves your life. If you're reading this, please know something. No one is perfect. No one gets it right all the time. Parents make mistakes. Children make mistakes. We all mess up. But what matters is what we do after we mess up. What matters is whether we are brave enough to admit we were wrong. Whether we are strong enough to try again. My parents hurt me. They really, truly hurt me. And I will never forget that. I will never pretend like it didn't happen. But I've also learned something valuable. Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It doesn't hurt them. It only hurts you. So I'm choosing to let go. Not because they deserve it. Not because I owe them anything. but because I owe it to myself. I owe it to myself to be free. I owe it to myself to move forward. And I owe it to my son to show him that forgiveness is possible. That redemption is possible. That love is possible, even after all the pain. It's not easy. It's not simple. It's a process, and it takes time. But it's worth it. So if you're reading this, and you've been hurt by someone you love, please know this: you are not alone. Your pain is real. Your anger is valid. But also know this: you are capable of healing. You are capable of growing. You are capable of letting go. It starts with a single step. A single choice. A single moment of courage. You can do this. I believe in you.